All right, Indiana basketball falls 73-64 Tuesday night at Matthew Knight Arena in Eugene. I'm Jack Ankony with our Indiana Hoosiers on SI postgame reaction video. I made the trip out here to the Pacific Northwest, was at Indiana's big win at Washington on Saturday, and made the trip down here to Eugene for this one. And, really a game that was pretty much back and forth for really the majority of the game. Oregon took a 28-19 lead at the 6:24 mark in the first half, and Indiana then immediately responded with a 13-2 run to take the lead. Kanan Carlisle was big in that stretch, hit a couple threes, gave Indiana a nice boost off the bench when Luke Goody was on the bench with a couple fouls. And for the majority of the second half, sort of went back and forth. It was looking like it was going to come down to who could make one big play at the end, and it didn't come down to the final possession or the final shot, but it did come down to about 2 minutes left in the game is when things flipped. Trey Galloway hit a 3-pointer at the 1:58 mark to give Indiana a 64-63 lead. There's a timeout. Indiana comes out in a press, gets Shellstad trapped in the corner, forces him to call a timeout. So then Oregon has 20-second possession there after that. I thought they defended the possession pretty well. If you watch it back, there were a couple times when they cut off Bamba from a drive. They cut off Biddle from trying to get to a kind of like a hook shot inside. They cut off Brandon Angel and sort of forced him to work the ball around. Then very late in the shot clock, Biddle caught it at about the 3-point line at the top of the key, kicks it out to Jackson Shellstad, who I wrote in the story at least 5 steps behind the 3-point line. I mean, it was very deep. He was in the trees, I guess you could say. On the Oregon's court has that kind of wild design. Super deep three. Anthony Leal sagged off him a step or two much. And a step or two too much, sorry. And Shellstad just buries it from way out. And, talked to Mike Woodson after the game about it. And, his point was, we shouldn't have left Shellstad with that much room because, you'd rather have, Biddle take that shot. I'll pull up the quote just so I'm not misquoting him. But basically, he said, we didn't defend it well. We didn't because Biddle caught the ball up top. Anthony was sucked in, and all he had to do was stay out. Make Biddle be the guy that beats you. Jackson has shown he can make those shots and beat you, and he did. It was a big shot when we were up one. So I understand his point from that perspective. I think I probably misphrased the question a little bit and should have said that, they forced it, it's not like Indiana gave up an open layup. They gave up about a 30-foot three. That's one that Shellstad probably doesn't make very often. He's a great player. He had 17 points in this one. He's a good 3-point shooter and capable of making that. But when I said that that they defended the possession well, if you go back and watch it, Biddle was trying to get a shot inside. Angel was trying to drive. Bamba was trying to drive. They were not looking for a three. Indiana was only up by 1 point at the time. They were trying to get it inside, and Indiana cut them off a few times. And it just happened that Leal was, maybe a step or two too close to Biddle, and just gave Shellstad a tiny bit of daylight, and that's all he needed to hit that three. So it's not like it was that was a buzzer beater. Indiana had chances after that. That put Oregon up 66-64 with 1:30 to play. So Indiana still had a few possessions there after that, but the offensive execution really sort of fell apart there down the stretch for Indiana, which we've seen, in a lot of games this year. You think about the loss at Purdue, the loss to Maryland, the loss to Michigan, Northwestern even. After the Shellstad three, Indiana comes out and Trey Galloway and Ballo kind of run a pick and roll, which they were doing pretty well for a good amount of the game. Galloway tried to sort of dump it inside to Ballo, and Biddle stepped in front, stole the ball. Galloway fouls him, and he hits both free throws. Then on the next possession, Galloway's kind of running to the right side, kicks it out to Mbako. Got a decent look. I don't know if it's in that situation. Mackenzie Mbako hadn't been playing his best game. He finished with 8 points on 2 for 10 shooting, 2 for 5 from three. Um, you know, is that a great shot that you want at the end? Probably not, but it certainly wasn't, a forced look or one that he's incapable of making. Um, just maybe in this situation, maybe not the guy that you want taking it, but one he can make. And if he makes it, we're not here sitting, oh, what an improbable shot. That's one he can make. Um, After that, then Oregon gets the rebound. Rice fouls Shellstad, makes the free throws, and that puts Oregon up 70-64 with 55 seconds left. Miles Rice took kind of like a mid-range jumper on the next possession. Goody fouls Shellstad. He splits the pair. Then Goody on the next possession turned it over. They foul Shellstad. He makes the 2 free throws, and it's a 10-0 run to end the game for Oregon to win 73-64. So a game that was really back and forth the whole time. Oregon's biggest lead didn't come until the final score. 9 points. They also led 9 by earlier in the game, but the final score tied their biggest lead. Mike Woodson after the game. Before that, just another one where Indiana doesn't really execute down the stretch. Mike, Woodson was like, I thought we had some good plays going and just didn't execute them, which is sort of, like I said earlier, been a theme in a lot of these before. Woodson was very upset about the officiating after. I was here with Mike Nislak on the Herald Times, and he asked Woodson, if it felt just sort of like another what if moment, sort of to the effect of, some of those close losses that I mentioned earlier. And he goes, just reading the Woodson quote here, he goes, we had our chances, but listen, guys, in a physical game like this, it can't be 21-7, referencing the free throw disparity. Oregon attempted 21 free throws, Indiana attempted just 7. I will point out that I think 7 of those were at the very end. Yeah, it looks like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We're in the last minute, so at one point it's 14-7, which is still significant. And I will say, 7 free throws is not many at all for how physical this game was. So I do think Woodson has a point there. I thought Renew and Balo are really getting hammered a few times down there, and so was Mackenzie Mbako, I thought, on a couple. Woodson goes, you got to be kidding me. 21-7 on effing free throws is another expletive. It just can't be, not in a physical game. They're a physical team. It can't be that lopsided. It's impossible. That's his quote on the officiating. We tried to ask him, was it inside with Renew and Balo? Was it this? Was it that? And, he didn't really want to get into specific plays or specific areas. His point was just, it can't be 21-7 in general. Kind of looking closer at that, Oregon was called for 12 fouls all game. Indiana was called for 15. It was actually pretty close in the first half. Indiana was called for 3. Oregon was called for 7. So it was actually the reverse in the first half. But then in the second half is when there was the huge difference. Indiana was called for 12 fouls, which put Oregon at the line 17 free throws. They went 15 for 17. Oregon was called for just 5 fouls in the entire second half, and Indiana went 2 for 2 at the line in the second half. They went 3 for 7 at the line the entire game. Oregon went 19 for 21. Renew also missed the front end of a 1-and-1 just before halftime, so that's 2 points that Indiana leaves there out on the table. Those I thought were the kind of the 2 biggest things, because really the rest of the game was pretty much back and forth. I thought Woodson was also kind of upset about Indiana's rebounding. Oregon finished with a 43-36 rebounding advantage, 15 offensive rebounds that led to 23 second chance points. Is definitely not a good stat for Indiana. Oregon led this game for 28 minutes, Indiana almost 5. But it was really never a game that was out of Indiana's reach. Every time Oregon sort of grew its lead, Indiana, did well to, kind of come back in this one. So, sort of to recap some leading scores, Trey Galloway, another good game for him. He set Indiana's all-time games played record tonight. in his fifth-year senior season, 138 games played, 16 points, 7 for 14 from the field, 2 for 4 from three, 4 assists, 3 rebounds, 3 turnovers. Umar Ballo, 10 points and 12 rebounds. Malik Renew was coming off the big game at Washington when he had 20 points. I think he was 10 for 13 in that game. This one, not nearly as efficient. 8 points, 4 for 12 shooting. I think if you look at that one, that was sort of where I thought maybe some of the fouls could have been called. I thought Renew got hit a few times when they missed it, but uh, obviously wasn't called. Luke Goody, 6 points, 2 for 5 from three. He dealt kind of with some foul trouble in the first half and didn't play his usual workload. Same with Anthony Leal, 23 minutes, picked up 3 fouls, 4 points. Kanan Carlisle, like I mentioned earlier, gave Indiana kind of a nice boost off the bench. His first game with multiple threes since December 9th against Minnesota. Mackenzie Mbaka, like I said, was kind of up and down, didn't score in the first half, missed his first 6 shots, and then kind of went on a personal 8-0 run, or I don't know if it was 8-0 run. I think it might have been 8-2. Yeah, it was 8-2, but he scored he was responsible for 8 of Indiana's, 8 straight points for Indiana. Jackson Shelstad led Oregon with 17, had the deep 3 there at the end. 5 for 13 shooting, so he wasn't too efficient either, but made his free throws there down the stretch. Got to give him credit for that. 5 for 6. Nate Biddle, 14 points, but only 3 for 10 shooting. Missed both of his threes. He was 8 for 8 at the line. That, got to give him credit for that too. That was kind of a big difference in terms of what Woodson was referencing with the free throw disparity. Biddle is their 7-foot center. He got to the line plenty. Whereas Indiana's bigs didn't as much. Ballo didn't attempt a free throw today. Renew was 0 for 3. Thought TJ Bamba for Oregon played good defense. He was guarding Goody and Mbaka for a lot of the game. He had 13 points, 5 for 13. Kwame Evans gave Oregon a nice boost off the bench with a couple threes. So, really a game that was back and forth for a lot of it, and Oregon sort of just made a couple more plays there in the last 2 minutes, which has really been kind of Indiana's downfall this year. This loss going into the game, Joe Lenardi on his bracketology had Indiana as one of the last 4 buys. I think he had Indiana as the 5th team off the cut line. So this would have been a quad 1 win for Indiana. Instead, it's a quad 1 loss. That now makes Saturday's senior day game at home against Ohio State pretty much a must win. We'll see how some of these bracketologists weigh this loss, because Oregon's obviously a good team. They're safely in the tournament. It's a quad 1 loss, so it's not a loss that that you ding Indiana for and say, oh, look at that was a bad loss. It's not a bad loss per se, but it's one that they really needed a win to solidify its tournament hopes. So a missed opportunity in that respect. I would, purely my gut, I'm admittedly not a bracketologist. I would think that Indiana would need to beat Ohio State and win 1 game in the Big Ten tournament, maybe even 2, depending on who it is. If you can get a quad 1 win in that first round, maybe they just need to beat Ohio State and get 1 more. But if you're playing an opponent that's only a quad 2 game, you might need to win 2 in the Big Ten tournament. Would sort of just be my gut reaction after this one. But we'll see over the next few days. A lot of it will have to do with bid stealers and what other teams around the bubble do in terms of what Indiana will have to get done. But I guess I would just consider this one as a missed opportunity to really feel good about, just beat Ohio State and you're in, or just win 1 more game. This one would have been really big for Indiana's tournament hopes. And, just another one that they let slip away. And I think you could sense the frustration from Woodson after the game, not even just with the officials. Obviously he was really upset about that, but just the fact that they've over and over had games like this where they're in a position to just make a few plays down the stretch and win the game, and they don't. And it's part of the reason he's not going to be here next year, is because of those close losses. If it is a big reason, if Indiana beats some of those teams and safely makes the tournament, it could be a different story with his tenure at Indiana. But yeah, like I said, so this one, Indiana falls 73-64 at Oregon. That drops the Hoosiers record to 18-12 overall, 9-10 in Big Ten play. They got a chance Saturday, 3:45 p.m. Eastern at home against Ohio State to finish Big Ten play with a 500 record. I believe as of right now, that would be a quad 2 win against Ohio State based on the net rankings. But I think Ohio State is kind of close to that quad 1, quad 2 range. So depending on kind of what happens around the country, I haven't seen what Ohio State has done recently either. It could move up to quad 1, but I think regardless of what it is, Indiana needs to win that game. If not, win 2 or 3 in the Big Ten tournament. So I think we'll leave it there. I've been Jack Ankony with our Indiana Hoosiers on SI postgame reaction video from Eugene, making the trip back to Bloomington tomorrow, and we'll be in Bloomington for Saturday's senior day game against Ohio State. So we'll talk to you then. See ya.